Welcome back to more Mario Power Tennis. Last time we won the Gimmick Masters Cups, so this time we're moving on to the final tournament. Once again, I think we'll switch characters, but also by winning the World Open with a character, you will unlock their star variant, which you can activate with the R button. So we'll be playing as the star version of Yoshi as we enter the star tournament, starting with the Rainbow Cup. First up is Luigi. The Star Tournament follows a similar format to the World Open, except in some cases the matches are a little bit longer with additional sets. But in this case, we also have the hard court, like with the Mushroom Cup. It's also worth mentioning that every character is set to their star version. To tell the truth, I tried to find exact stat changes for the star variants of every character, and I couldn't find exact details, but basically, the characters are powered up from their standard variants. In a lot of cases, the AI behavior is still the same though, so in the case of Luigi, he still tends to go close to the net, which makes him a fairly easy first opponent for this cup. In general, I do like the Star Tournament a lot. These matches are still not overly difficult, but definitely a lot more challenging than for the World Open, which I do like, as someone who has played a ton of this game, and definitely have a decent idea of what I'm doing, especially with some of the AI behavior like this. But that takes care of the first match of the Cup. One thing I did learn from my research in trying to find out the differences between the character stats is that apparently Koopa is actually one of the characters that's commonly used in speedruns for this game. I actually found a specific tier list even, and Koopa and Princess Peach are among the top tier characters, and unfortunately, Princess Peach is actually doing well in the other bracket as well, so we'll probably be seeing her at some point in this tournament too. In general, I can see why Koopa being one of the faster characters, he can definitely get around the court incredibly fast, which makes him very dangerous in terms of like trying to actually outwit him in terms of basically getting the ball from one side of the court to the other. In terms of lob shots and drop shots, obviously he can also respond very quickly to those, and in general he also has a very unique offensive power shot, which is actually a drop shot. If I'm not mistaken, it's like water-powered, and will actually slow down your opponent for a bit after you receive it. So again, Koopa is actually a fairly dangerous opponent because of some of his quirks that set him apart from a lot of the other characters in terms of, his overall move speed and the offensive power shot for him. But overall, that went very smoothly. Thankfully, he was early on in this tournament, so we didn't have to worry about the worst of his moveset. So that takes us to the final of the Rainbow Cup. One thing I do like about the Star Tournament is you do have some unique aesthetics for some of the matches, so this is the only time we'll see the hard court in the Peach Dome at sunset. And to my knowledge, there's never a night variation of this court. Part of me wonders if they even made a night version of the court, to be honest, since it's never actually used in-game. In general, Princess Peach is probably one of the best characters because of her power shots being really good. Also, as a technique character, I almost feel like she has a lot more control over the ball's direction, to the point of being able to, like, basically force the opponent to one side of the court or the other very easily, setting them up to get the ball past them. Again, I do like sunset aesthetics a lot in games, and I do wish there was an option for casual matches to actually select the time of day in the Peach Dome, but to be honest, I don't think there is. As far as I can tell, and as far as I've ever seen from all my years of playing this game, there isn't really an option to actually select time of day in the stages, which is kind of a bummer. We also have unique music. It's also worth mentioning that the music of this game, if I'm not mistaken, was done by Motoi Sakuraba, who's actually a fairly prolific composer of many video games. I'm pretty sure they're probably best known for their work on the Mario sports games with Camelot, but they've also obviously done these soundtracks for Golden Sun, and if I'm not mistaken, the Tales games as well. In general, they're not one of my favorite video game composers, but their works are very good still. I almost feel like their works have a very distinct sound to them, so they tend to feel a little bit like samey after a bit, but they're not bad by any means. In general, I do like a lot of video game composers. If I had to name some of my favorites, this list would probably include like Yasunori Mitsuda, who did the soundtracks for some of the Xenoblade games, and Chrono Trigger most notably, and I think Chrono Cross also. But also, obviously, Nobuo Uematsu, who's done a lot of Final Fantasy games. It's also worth mentioning that Yoshi has one of the best offensive power shots in some ways because it actually reaches lob shots. In a lot of cases, if you try to use an offensive power shot in a lob, you'll accidentally end up using the defensive power shot instead if you're set to the standard controls and not the technical controls, where you actually manually control everything, and if you use the wrong power shot, it will simply whiff. But Yoshi's will reach lob shots, making it very good against opponents like Peach and also Shy Guy, who is the other opponent that we could have been seeing for this match. In general, I do like Yoshi a lot. Yoshi's one of my favorite Mario characters, and he has been for many years, and he also has a unique gimmick as well that we'll be seeing a little bit later on, as we'll have to use the defensive power shot at some point. But overall, the Rainbow Cup was still not overly difficult.
How could I lose?
Hooray! Yay! Oh! Oh! Ah! Final set. Yoshi to serve.
For the Moonlight Cup, our first opponent is Diddy Kong. We're actually still at Sunset, oddly enough, despite this being the Moonlight Cup, though the name will make more sense towards the end. We're already starting off not so great, with Diddy already scoring a point. In general, for these early cups, the AI isn't too difficult either, but again, it's definitely tougher than anything we saw at this point in the World Open. We definitely have to be a little bit more crafty with our shot types and trying to kind of outwit our opponent. One of my biggest failing points in every Mario Tennis game is I never use slices, which is definitely a problem. To tell the truth, I actually don't know what the benefit of a slice is compared to a top spin shot. I do often use drop shots a lot, but I also don't use lobs much, mostly just because it sets the opponent up for getting a smash shot through. So in general, I try to stick with other types of shots if possible, unless they're really close to the net like that, or in which case we might have been able to lob it past Diddy fast enough for him to not be able to actually return it. Again, I really like the Sunset aesthetic. But again, I just wish you could select it in other modes as well. Diddy already used his special, so we're safe to use our offensive power shot here, and also we used our defensive power shot, which actually, once you beat the Flower Cup in doubles, has the ability to change Yoshi's color, which is a very unique mechanic that only Yoshi has, obviously. I kind of wish Koopa had something similar, where you could swap between different types of Koopas, because there are several different color variations for shells, though I guess maybe it wouldn't necessarily make as much sense. But it's a very nice detail for Yoshi specifically. Alright, we have to deal with Diddy's offensive power shot there that kind of knocks us off balance there, but luckily we were able to return in time. I definitely had my finger slip there, unfortunately, so we weren't able to actually return the ball there. Let's try to drop shot there to get Diddy into that corner, and we'll try to knock it past him in order to close out the first round of the Moonlight Cup. Overall, that was definitely a little bit trickier than what we've seen so far, but still went pretty well.
First set, Yoshi to serve.
Next up is Donkey Kong, and we actually have a night variation of the Clay Court, which is only used for this particular tournament. I am very nervous about the second half of the bracket. Both Shy Guy and Boo are characters that give me a lot of trouble in the Star Tournament, so I'm a little bit nervous and would rather have someone different for the final opponents. Again, even though obviously I don't entirely know the differences for the star characters, the bigger difference is just the AI difficulty is a lot higher compared to the World Open. So as the AI difficulty goes up, obviously you'll have to deal with more nonsense from the AI, like lob shots and drop shots, which the AI generally doesn't use as much on the lower difficulties. Oddly enough, I'd rather fight someone like Bowser or DK in a final match just because they're slow. They're so slow, it's really easy to get shots past them without too much difficulty. But with someone like Shy Guy or Boo, they're pretty quick and also have very odd like shot arcs, so it can be very difficult to actually deal with them on the higher difficulty levels. So we'll have to see what happens with the final cup as well. I'm definitely nervous about that. We haven't really been saving about this playthrough, but I might actually make an exception for the final cup just because a lot can actually go wrong with that. One good indicator of the stat changes between the two character states is the serve speed. You might notice that DK is serving shots at like 127, whichever unit of measurement is being used for this. So in some cases, you can actually see some differences in overall power based on the serve speed. But again, I can't find exact stats, unfortunately. It's actually something I like better about the Mario Golf games compared to the tennis games, because in the golf games, they do give things like maximum drive, for example, which is a lot more information, and I do like having a little bit more details of what being a star character, what playing a star character actually does. I also haven't mentioned it, I'm pretty sure, but you can also press Z to change the camera perspective. You have 3 different types, either one like fixed behind you, and there's this one that basically is fixed to the court, this one that's fixed behind the player character in one player, and this one where it's like a dynamic camera that's a little bit closer in. To tell the truth, I almost just always stick with the default camera. I don't really like the other camera perspectives. This could be bad. That was a weirdly slow shot, actually. I was expecting it to kind of go a lot farther, faster, but oh well. DK is giving us a little bit of trouble here, but again, overall, the power characters, because they have lower speed, they can be a little bit easier to kind of trick into going to one spot in order to actually get a shot through really easily. In this case, DK's defensive power shot is very stationary, and that is another major difference between characters even within a class like this. So obviously, DK's, since he just tosses a banana, he doesn't really move, which actually makes it harder to basically manipulate a defensive power shot to your advantage. So for example, in the case of someone like Bowser, whose defensive power shot actually straight up takes him to the ball's location, DK doesn't really move, so if he's in the center, he'll stay in the center. Meanwhile, if Bowser uses his, he'll actually go to where the ball is, meaning he can very easily shoot the ball to the other side of the court to get it past him. So again, slightly different behaviors of power shots are also one of the biggest differences between the different characters, even within a class. I also never really talked more about the Wii version. I meant to, and I got sidetracked, and we're going to get sidetracked again as we're reaching the match point for this particular round. So let's try to close this out, and then I'll try to actually remember to talk about the Wii version as we enter the next match of the Moonlight Cup. But overall, again, power characters aren't that bad, oddly enough. And in general, the AI is still relatively manageable in these early matches.